leaving a teacher stuck with an unresolved problem that just nags at them day after day after day. We must do something about those problems. Now, I tried to word this carefully. I did not say find a fix in difficult situations. Most difficult situations are not fixed, and then whoosh, we move on. But find a way forward.
Welcome back to the Doc School Leader Podcast, where we're dedicated to the renewal and growth of school leaders. I'm your host, Kyler Martin. We're running a survey to evaluate this podcast. 3 minutes of your time to answer 5 questions will help us serve you better. We hope to help you lead your school community with greater wisdom and courage. Transformative schools need effective leaders, and effectiveness requires patient training. Here we go. If supporting your teachers looks overwhelming to you, know that you're not alone. Caring for and nurturing teachers is not easy. Every teacher represents many relationships and responsibilities. Your teachers' jobs matter, and they matter every day. That's why teaching is hard, and why it's hard to care for teachers. There's just no autopilot at school. Anthony Hurst, who is a school representative for Christian Light, addresses this reality with the experience of both a teacher and an administrator. He also understands the perspective of a school board. And there's lots of combined talking to admin and school boards here. I want to give you a few ideas for how to think about this overlap. For example, Anthony describes the importance of visiting school. For those of you who teach or administrate full-time, this is important perspective for you to bring to your school board. You play a vital role in helping your school board effectively support teachers. Your teachers need to have meaningful connections with the school board, and you stand at a key place to help ensure that it happens. You yourself need a strong connection and shared understanding with the school board. As you hear Anthony address school board members, ask yourself, what is my place in cultivating a healthy principal to school board and staff to school board relationship? In short, even for schools that have on-site principals or administrators, the presence of the school board is essential to providing a healthy support network for teachers. Teachers can't do it alone. Administrators can't do it alone. It takes all of us trying to understand each other's perspectives and working together to welcome each other's presence. This takes an inviting attitude, a strategic plan, and lots of patient dedication to make it happen. And Anthony has lots of ideas to get you started, from enriching your team to resolving repeated conflict with parents, co-teachers, and students, to empowering staff without going overboard on autonomy. You might be hard-pressed to find resource tapes these days, as he suggests, but a bit of searching on the doc should turn up some relevant material in line with your specific needs. So take heart, and may this talk strengthen you for your good work.
The saying is on our board at school, the best thing about being a teacher is that it matters. The hardest thing about being a teacher is that it matters every day. Did you ever think about it, that might be one of the things that burns teachers out? And that's why they need your support so much, why we need your support. So I'm coming today from a teacher perspective, administrator's perspective. I'm not on the school board. That is one of the things that weighs us as teachers down, your teachers, is that every day it matters. You know, we talk about good days and bad days, and good moods and bad moods, and ups and downs, but somehow the teacher is supposed to act like that is not them, right? They're not supposed to have good and bad days. They're supposed to every day go to school with their best foot forward. Well, we have a life outside of school, of course. We have pressures that we face from outside. Our lives bring us good days and emotions, good emotions, and sometimes tough emotions. Physically, some days we feel better than others. But we're not supposed to show that at 8:15 when the students come. And we're supposed to hang on till 3 o'clock or whenever your school's over. So that's one of the reasons you need to be able to support them. Don't pity your teachers. They don't want your pity. They want your support. But I say that to just call attention to the fact that that is one of, I like this saying. It's so true. It's one of the inspiring things about being a teacher. Not because other jobs don't matter, and not in any way to suggest that being a teacher is better or more spiritual than any other job. That's not true. And we shouldn't think that. We shouldn't tell our students that or in our communities that. That, you have your regular Christians and then you got your real Christians, They're the teachers, preachers, and missionaries. And sometimes we fall into telling people that. That's not true. We just cannot do that. But one of the joys of being a teacher is that it is fulfilling and it matters. But one of the toughest things, as is mentioned, is that it simply matters every day. One student said, I can tell what mood my teacher's in by how he combs his hair. So I make sure every day I comb my hair the same way. No, I really don't. So number one, I just simply have train potential teachers. Now this is getting a lot of discussion in our schools. Faith Builders obviously has taken this serious, looking for potential teachers and training them. I like to think of it as, can we create in our communities a pool of potential teachers? Now, wouldn't that be a joy, board members? Sometimes I'm amazed at our faith. It's June, but I'm sure that the Lord has somebody out there prepared to teach school. We just got to keep calling till we find that person. But come July and August, it's tough work, isn't it? And we obviously the qualifications are just, we need a teacher. And when we call somebody, as one board member said, well, you're the 80th teacher I've called. There's not a lot of vetting that has happened at all. It's just who might be next. So if we can think about potential teachers, our school has a lot of work to do in this. We think about it a lot, and we talk about it some, but it's hard to get done. Look for that 16, 17, 18-year-old. We've talked about in faculty meeting just yesterday. Who would be some young people? Maybe we can go after and say, would you be interested coming back to school now, being in school a few weeks, a month over winter? Get your feet wet, a way to just invest in them and hopefully kind of ascertain, would they be a teacher or wouldn't they? Also, once you have a teacher, I'd encourage you to do what you can to train that teacher, especially if you can hire now. See, one of the things that I think is challenging, I'm from a larger school, and we talk about this, if we bring teachers in to train in our school, but then they go to a small school where they teach 2 or 3 or 4 grades, it's so different. I have a former student who said recently that, teaching in a small school was quite challenging for her because she was in a larger school where it was pretty much 1 grade until you got into 9 and 10, 1 grade in a classroom, and the management that it took, she wasn't prepared for that because she never really saw that. And so training teachers in the environment or a similar environment in which they're going to teach, I think is something to think about. So just something to keep in mind. But yes, if you can hire a teacher now, require them to come in, ask them to come in a week, 2 weeks, a month, work with the teacher and experienced teachers so that some of those mistakes will be made under the eye of an experienced teacher and can be worked on rather than going into the next year and sometimes then not being addressed as soon as it should be. So, question, should the boards pay for training if it's not at your own school? Some say yes, some say no, or are thinking no. So different boards do different things here, of course. Some boards feel comfortable in some settings and not in others. So every community has to work that question out. I think it's wonderful if they can at least pay for some summer training at least. There's many teacher weeks, lots of teacher weeks, and to expect teachers to pay a few $100s to go, I think it's great if the board can do that. And if the board is comfortable and somebody can go for what's called like a Faith Builder summer term or take some local classes in a local college, there might be some of those opportunities that the board can do. It might be a 17-year-old who doesn't have a job yet and is looking down the road a few years and saying, I'll take this time to come into school, maybe as a teacher helper, and even do teaching. And I'll just mention this. That experience needs to be evaluated. We've done some teacher training with our older students, like 10th graders that had that opportunity. And I like so much when the teachers take time then to evaluate that teacher. I mean, what good does it do just to come in and teach? Oh, it was fun, but I love to see the notes afterwards. You did very well here, but here when you did this here, this is what you did. You could improve here and there. That's how we learn, right? By evaluating that training opportunity so that the teacher actually learns and grows. Let's go into number 2, or letter B. Give opportunity for refreshment. Now, again, different schools are going to do this different. Some take off to go to CMTI or Faith Builders when they have their day for teachers in the year. Visiting other schools, some do that. Other ways of just having teacher enrichment, times maybe that they can just be refreshed with other teachers. We run, and I would encourage your larger communities to consider something like this, we run what we call a teacher enrichment day. We just had that a few weeks ago. We've done that now for 10, 11 years, where we simply take off a day, and we invite teachers from our conference. And this year we also did board members, so we expanded a little bit. And so all the teachers come from, or many teachers from different schools, different states, and we just spend a day together. We run workshops similar to this, some main addresses, we sing. It just is an encouraging day. They can look forward in winter that we just get that one day that we can take a break and be with other teachers. So you can do that in small communities as well. I know a lot do that. Just take a day where they invite the communities around you, whether it's church affiliations or just other schools in your community, and put some work into making it a nice day for them. It's a way, again, to build something back into them because they're giving and giving. It's a way for them to be refreshed. Some schools, they take their teachers somewhere for a special thing. The school board will take them for a special day, of educational day, that type of thing. That just gives them a break. All right, identify areas of academic weakness. I didn't know if I wanted to mention this, but I am going to mention it briefly because part of equipping our teachers, we can have situations in our schools where teachers really are not competent in a certain subject. Now listen, if you're getting a new teacher and he's teaching high school, and maybe he's been out of school a number of years, he's supposed to teach algebra, and he's supposed to teach biology or maybe chemistry and literature, and the whole list of difficult subjects. It is a growing process for that teacher to kind of master. Maybe 1 year, I've encouraged teachers to just take kind of one subject and develop that well. Develop notes for it. Develop your own tests if that's what you enjoy doing. And this subject, you just got to give it the best you can. Now you got that valuable set of notes. You've been through the curriculum. Now you can take the next and work through that carefully. That's different than saying, well, I hear this once in a great while, not often, that my teacher just never enjoyed and understood algebra, so we just did some of it here and there. I don't think that should be allowed. So make sure that everything is being taught at least a reasonable level, and where there are weaknesses, identify those, encourage them to improve, but not allow it that, well, I just don't understand English, so when I get to verbals, I just don't teach that section. We can't teach the whole curriculum every year, but not just pick and choose because I don't know how to do it and leave important holes in the academic process. All right, letter D. Again, this is kind of a simpler note. Provide inspirational reading and CDs or other materials. This is maybe hard to do, but as your school grows and you have more opportunities to bring some things in, or maybe teachers bring things in and share them, I just love to see our teachers read things like Jesse Stewart's The Thread That Runs So True. I'm sure some of you have read that. Or books by Bruce Wilkinson, 7 Laws of the Learner, 7 Laws of the Teacher. There's a lot of good information out there, tapes, CDs, books, that just provides a little bit of a library. And we have teachers who do that. I love to hear this one teacher. We've taught many years together. She's taught more than I have, 40 some years now. And she'll say, oh yes, over Christmas, I still get those out and I still listen to those. So she just needs that inspiration of listening to the same thing, maybe again. It just adds to their ideas and just something that you can invest in them. And then invest, letter E, invest in things like, again, there's budgets here, but library, science equipment, play equipment. Be sensitive to what your teachers ask for. They might not get everything they ask for, of course, but try to be sensitive to what do you need to do your job well, rather than, well, money's really tight. Teachers know that already. All right? You know why, don't you? Of course, there's limits, and teachers need to be reasonable. The other side is they can be very frustrated with feeling that every time they come with a request for something that they really would like to have or should have, it's almost like, well, we'll see what we can do. And there's kind of that hesitancy. I'll be up front. Hey, you know what? Right now we can't get that. We'd love to. Maybe we can look at it in a month or two. Would you be okay with that? Could we borrow something from another school? How can we work around it? What you need? Maybe it's in chemistry. Maybe it's just, again, play equipment. Or tell them that, we can do this. Maybe they need to wait a little bit, but at least that they don't get a sense that they're being a bother when they come and ask you. All right, I'd like to move on to supporting, because I think this is from some different angles. All of these points, or almost all of these points, are going to be very difficult to do if you don't spend any amount of time at school. It's a little troubling for your teachers to know that you're at school board meeting making decisions about school that affect them, and you have no idea what really is going on. So you want to build trust with your faculty. And really the only way to build trust is to show that you are there at times. You see what's happening. You open the door of communication. We'll talk more about that later. So that when you make a decision, it looks informed. Because of course you're going to make decisions that the teachers are not always going to agree with, and they need to graciously accept that. But they can do that so much better if you've shown that I'm trying to learn what life is like for you as a teacher. I want to really know what you're struggling with. I appreciate so much school board members, and we have a few in our school, who will spend most of the day there. Do the teachers talk about that afterward? They sure do. A couple of men come to my mind right away. Came up recently, they said, you know what? When he visits a couple times a year, he spends the whole day here. And you can tell that really impresses the teacher. He's a busy man, he's a businessman, but he visits room after room. He fills out evaluations that are meaningful, rather than just great, or I don't know what kind of forms you might have. And they look at those and they say, you know what? He's taking time to really evaluate the school. Now, do you think there's a respect then when that man says something at faculty meeting or brings something back from the board that here's what we decided? Well, of course there is. There's a sense that he cared enough to visit and make an informed decision, rather than, well, we just think this would be the way to do it. And the teacher said, but you don't know. And so I just encourage you, as just a general thing, for all these points, that the more you get a feel for the school, the better you can fulfill your responsibilities, and the better the teachers can accept your input. All right, so letter A. Develop and share a personal vision for your school. This is just a huge burden of mine. I was talking to a teacher recently after home and school meeting, and he said, you know what? He said, at least when he had come to that school, he said, my board knew nothing about how school runs. See, this is what we tend to do. We want to find a man that will run our schools. Is that what you're after? You have somebody like that, maybe? You have a man that's kind of running your school. He's the administrator, the principal, head teacher, might even be a lady. It's been there for many years. And you know what? As long as he's there, as long as she's there, everything you think is going to be okay. There's a couple problems with that. Number one, it's not good for that person, okay? It's not good for that administrator to be given that amount of autonomy, that amount of authority, that amount of trust. That's almost like hands off. Well, you know what you're doing. It's whatever you think. You've been around. Now, that might feel nice and fuzzy, but that's not good for that person, because he doesn't see his own faults. He's not being challenged with his own flat spots, and it can get a little heady, because it's just kind of, well, it's you. So on the one side, some teachers feel they're not respected and honored in their communities. Others, it's tipped the other way, but not for healthy reasons. It's a little more like, you can do it. Good job. We're busy. We're glad you're here. And just keep it going. So it's not good for that person. Secondly, that person probably will eventually quit or die. And then, who's going to figure out how school runs? I have seen this happen. Schools that were running maybe fairly smoothly, and the person quit, and then the boards, well, yeah, what? Does anybody know anything about curriculum? No. Does anybody know about policies in this school? Not really. Anybody really know what made school work? Not really. It was all going well. Now what? Who pays the price? Well, a lot of people pay the price, right? So developing your own personal vision, of course, with the rest of the board and with the teachers. But it's discouraging for teachers to see board members who really, it's obvious, have very little interest in school. It's just something they got stuck with for hopefully no more than 3 years, whatever a term is, and just really, they're just putting in time. I just want to really encourage you, again, this is from a teacher perspective, administrator's perspective. We appreciate so much the effort that teachers, that board members, so maybe part of it is board members sometimes feel intimidated by experienced teachers, right? And so it's like, we'll just defer to what they think. Am I getting a few nods of heads on that? Well, it's like, I don't know. I mean, I got out of school 20 years ago at 8th grade, and, I don't know. Well, I don't think teachers feel that way. They shouldn't feel that way. They still want you to try to learn what makes school work, to ask good questions, to be involved and learn. I don't think teachers want to be intimidating or send a signal that, hey, you don't really know what you're talking about, so we'll handle it. So I encourage you to take courage to get involved and not feel overly intimidated. And you might be in a school culture where you really don't, but I hope the teachers are not feeling that way. If they are, they should try to change. I hope we have schools where any board member at any time and any parent is always welcome to come and visit. It's great to call. It's nice actually to call because, boy, you get young teachers, new teachers, and there's a knock on the door and they open up and there's a board chairman. I mean, it does kind of set them back. So calling is a very nice, respectful thing to do. But that it's a nuisance just because it makes them nervous is not, I don't call that being a nuisance. Good point. All right, letter B, find a way forward in difficult situations. This is another huge burden of mine because I'm afraid teachers quit at times because of this very point. They are stuck with the problem. My brother was a school teacher years ago, and I had visited his room, and so I knew a little bit the dynamics of his room and a particular really difficult case, and I knew a little bit what he was talking about, and he said he was off a day then, and a school board member substituted. And at the end, the school board member just said, "I'm glad I'm not the teacher." Just kind of like, here are the keys. I'm going back to my real job. That really takes the wind out of your sails as a teacher. So I think of it this way, leaving a teacher stuck with an unresolved problem that just nags at them day after day after day. We must do something about those problems. Now, I tried to word this carefully. I did not say find a fix in difficult situations. Most difficult situations are not fixed, and then we move on. But find a way forward. So, classic examples of where teachers are burdened and every day they're just faced with a student who does not get his work done. There's back work, there's redo work, and this is just a fight day after day. So when you ask a teacher, I sometimes tell teachers, you can tell where your problem spot is in your room. If somebody says, "So how's school going?" The first student you think about, that's your problem. Almost always. And of the years I've taught, there's always that one student, sometimes 2 or 3, unfortunately. But almost always, it's just your mind just kind of goes to, that's the situation you as a board need to be willing to get involved in if it warrants it. But I think sometimes teachers burn out because they can't get away from it. There's nobody to help them. They don't know how to get out of it. They need somebody willing to come in and support them by saying, we're going to meet with these parents. Think of a situation not very long ago, and I think that's what was done. There was a pileup of work, bunch of back work, redo work, And the board sat down, or the administrator in that school sat down and said, you know what? We gotta start over. All that back work, we're just gonna forgive. That back work, those redo papers, tomorrow's a new day. And from here on, all back work goes home. Because this child was coming to school every day starting out doing his redo work. And so at 11 o'clock starts what everybody else started at 9 o'clock. It's just always behind. The morale was low in the student, and the teacher, that just burdened him. I talked to the teacher day after day. This was just in his face. He could hardly enjoy school because this problem is every day. And it brought huge relief. Now, did it fix the problem? Well, it helped. It was a way forward. And later reports were that it just lifted everybody's burden. So the child was happy, got a fresh start. It's current now. Every day there's work that needs to be redone, goes home. It's the parent's problem. Every day you come to school, you begin the fresh lessons. Any redo work gets done at home. It had to be a way forward rather than just leaving the teachers to, well, you just got to figure it out. Often they're inexperienced teachers and they don't know what to do to figure it out. Sometimes the board can come in with a fresh look, a little more optimism, knowing the parents, and be able to solve a problem. Now, sad indeed is when it's your son or daughter. I can say this because I don't know most of you. You don't know me. But I talked to a teacher recently, and he was telling me his woes. I said, so where's the principal in this? He said, it's the principal's son. I said, well, where's the preacher's? He said, the preacher's boy has just the same attitude. I'm not making this up. This happened. Now what's the way forward? That teacher said, I just am about ready to quit. He's head teacher. He's taught 10 years. I've known him for years. He's a gifted teacher. He said, I just don't know what to do anymore. See, he's ready to quit. There's no way forward. The attitude in the school is negative toward him because he's he likes to make it happen. They didn't think they should have to study algebra, and he decided, no, we're going to do algebra. He said, I know it was the principal who didn't think we shouldn't. He worked behind my back to try to get it off the list for this year, but, we had it anyhow. Now, his boy has a bad attitude, and the dad still thinking, why in the world are we doing this? I don't know what to do. There's no support. Because those who I should be able to go to are the problem. So now what do you expect your teachers to do? Board members, quit. It is really disconcerting when it's the ministries and school boards and chairmen or principals, and when it's their children that drain the school. I hope I'm not stepping on any toes, but I'm just saying it because this happens. And there's no way forward because the very people that should be part of the solution are the problem. Now what are they supposed to do? Find a way forward. Another teacher that I knew for years, talented teacher, he finally said, I couldn't deal with the ladies in this school anymore. Now, let me just say on the other hand, to be fair, the problem is not always a student. Sometimes the problem is the teacher. That is right. You got to work your way through that. Teachers aren't perfect. We're not perfect. It'd be foolish for us to act like we don't make any mistakes. We're always right. We defend ourselves. It would be very poor of us to do that. There's times we make mistakes. I've already told our children through the years, well, you know what? He maybe should have handled that a little differently. But guess what? You're not any more perfect than he or she is. I'm not any more perfect. It was okay. It's a mistake. Go back and have a good attitude, and don't you dare gossip about it or complain whatsoever. We gain a lot more as parents when we do that than saying, oh no, the teacher's always right. The teacher's always right. Guess what? We're not always right. So don't say that. Now, you might be surprised that I say that from a teacher standpoint, but that's how I feel. I do not want my patrons to always say that what I say is right. Because I have made mistakes. And so for a parent to respectfully help their child through that is how they will cope when church leaders make mistakes and government leaders make mistakes and et cetera, et cetera. Somehow we still respect them, even though we might acknowledge that there might have been poor judgment in that situation. Of course, if there's a situation that is repeated over and over and you can't move forward, that creates a situation the board needs to decide what to do with. All right, moving on. Letter C is somewhat related. Resolve conflict with parents, co-teachers, and students. All right, so I would like to suggest that somehow administration boards get involved when there is repeated conflict. Somehow, for the teachers to take that pressure, I really don't think they should have to. I don't know if you have a policy, but I think you should have all but a policy. I would be very disappointed if any of my patrons, our patrons, would call any teacher with a frustrated voice, especially at 3:15 in the afternoon. I would probably go contact that parent. It's to come to me as administrator. So have an understanding that all complaints are channeled through administration. I appreciate so much when parents give me those kind of calls, nicely. But even if it's not nice, at least it came to me and saying, you know what, this is what happened today, but I'm gonna let you decide what you do with it. See, that allows, it takes some emotion off the table. I can watch a situation. Sometimes I say nothing. The parent might say, often has said that. You know, maybe you'll never say anything about it. Might have just been my child. Just watch that situation. Thank you so much for calling me. Other times, I'll go to the teacher a day or two or three later and say, you know what? I did get a call from a parent, a little bit of concern. Nobody was upset, but here's something that does need to be looked at. But it cushions it. So if there's a parent that is repeatedly frustrated, at least take the weight off the teacher. Try to resolve that conflict. Sometimes there's conflict with a teacher and a student. I can think of situations like that they just, for some reason, couldn't get along. And it just creates conflict and conflict and conflict over and over again. The board has to be willing to get involved. Sit down with the student, the parents. What is wrong? We have to soften this situation. Or again, it burns the teacher out and it obviously destroys the morale of the whole classroom. So resolve those kind of conflicts. Sometimes it is between co-teachers. Unfortunately, I've had some of my toughest meetings in my life with co-teachers who were threatened by each other and makes very difficult situations, but you have to be willing to do that. And you can smell, they just don't get along. There's frictions. There's friction. They're threatened by each other, and somehow work your way through that. It's either that or let it get worse until it falls apart. And that eventually does happen sometimes, of course. All right, let's move on to ask, how's it going? Ask, what is the hardest thing about teaching? And because I wrote that down, I try to do that to some of my teachers this week. What's the hardest thing about teaching? Because again, what comes up is what you have to focus on. Now, sadly, if they say, well, it's this parent that calls me once in a while, or just I know doesn't approve of what I'm doing, those are hard situations. But just knowing that you can talk about it is helpful in a way to support them. It might be a workload. It might be, well, you know what? I feel like, I can think of one teacher I worked with for a number of years, and her big thing was she was such a perfectionist that she was always just drowned in her work because she wanted to get it all done right and felt guilty. That's where administration boards need to come in and say, okay, let's take a look at this. Here's some things you're doing that actually you don't have to do. Well, but I should do it. But you don't have to. I remember telling her, me and my wife, meeting with her, said, you know, I would rather have you with energy and feeling well and passionate about teaching than having all the things done just right, but you're out of energy when you get to school the next morning. See, you want your teachers to bring themselves to the classroom, excited about teaching and awake and feeling well. But sometimes teachers are so perfectionistic that they can hardly they wear themselves out. And by the time they get into school, they are really worn out. I've seen that happen. Again, you need to get involved in those kind of situations when that is their burden. When you ask them, so what's tough about teaching? Well, I'm working 15 hours a day. I don't have a life out of school. Maybe they need a teacher helper. Maybe they need to learn to manage their time. But something, again, has to change. Don't leave your teachers stuck. When they're honest with you and tell you what's hard about teaching, then try to help them with the way forward. All right. Next letter, and I'm curious where you are in this one. Define, and I have a number of issues here. Define entrance levels. All right, I'm surprised at how many schools, if you ask them, so what determines if your child is ready for first grade? I don't know. I'd be curious. I guess I won't ask for a raise of hands. But I wonder if you know as a board. Or do you say, well, you know, our teachers taught a lot of years and I think they take a test and then she just kind of makes a judgment call. See, that is so dangerous. because moms talk. So this test came home and with a 51, and this one didn't get in, and this one came in with a 50. This isn't percentile. These are the numbers that we would use in our testing. This one came in at a 50, and your child passed? Yeah. Well, mine had a 51. Well, it did say that, he's very undisciplined and really, See, there's a lot of emotion now because this is a judgment call. So what I'm suggesting is that numbers don't lie. We must get our schools where there's numbers. Is there no flex? There's a little bit of flex, but it keeps the emotion off the table. So we've had to put a considerable work into going through lots of records back through, talking to other teachers to finally come up with some numbers a number of years ago. And now the first grade teacher doesn't have to fight this every year. So I got 5 students, I got 10 students, and wow, 3 are close. This one's definitely, 1 or 2% under. Well, look, here's the numbers. If they're under this number, they have to wait, unless they waited already. There's exceptions, but as a general rule, pass, fail lines is another one that I think is so important. It should not be the teacher's decision if a child fails or passes. It's the numbers. Now, then maybe they help decide, but again, when it becomes a judgment call, how are you going to be consistent, number one, from child to child? We teachers do struggle with liking some children more than others. You know that? Okay? And there's some parents we're afraid of more than others. Okay? And so if it's a parent that, this isn't going to go well with, I'm not dealing with this. They passed. This one, the parents offered, if you don't think my child's ready, it's okay, we'll wait. Okay, thank you. Why don't you wait? Now wait a minute. The numbers don't hold out here. Okay, so it falls on the teacher and there's a lot of emotion. A way to get the emotion off the table is set the pass-fail. And that's pretty tight. That's how it works. That's your job as a board or administration to help come up with those. Maybe do a lot of research on that. What's fair? What do other schools do? We compared with other schools that use similar curriculum. Where are their lines? Where should our lines be? One teacher just the other day, she went back and looked at some struggling students that are in the middle of the school and looked at what their grades were when they passed in first and second grade to see if we should bump it up. Right? So do some research. Of course, if you have a larger school, you have more numbers to compare with, but talk to other schools so that the burden does not fall on your teachers. Number one, it's hard for teachers to be consistent. And then what about when a new teacher comes in? She's really strict, or he's really strict. Well, that's not fair, right? That needs to be decided by the numbers, by the board, not by what kind of a teacher you have, or the mood of the teacher, or the circumstances. Another one is late work policies. This has taken huge stress off of our teachers and brought a lot of rest, and I'm thankful for this. Okay, late papers, incomplete papers. I forgot my book. My child was sick, now they're not done. Well, we have a faculty of about 12, so some of us are more kind-hearted than others. Some of us are just tougher than others. Some of us have good days and bad days, sort of, right? And students that are easier to let go because they're intimidating than others. It's extremely difficult for teachers to be fair. Worse yet, you got siblings in the school. So 3rd grade Johnny forgot his books in the van. So what did your teacher do? Oh, she said, just bring them tomorrow. Big brother forgot his too. What did your teacher say? Oh, I stayed in no activity. Oh, your teacher's strict. Yeah, your teacher's nice. So to create consistency somehow, somewhere, takes the pressure off the teachers. They don't have to make that judgment call over and over and over again. Last few points, letter F. Empower the teacher with authority. Now, this is a tough one because where's the line? Well, I don't know. You have to work on this line. It's the difference between micromanaging, being there all the time, snooping, what's going on? Hey, why are you doing it this way? Why are you doing it that way? Versus backing off and just empower them to do everything. But it's a tough line. Nobody can draw that line exactly. Different teachers need different amount of support and help. Some teachers that are experienced, confident, can make wise decisions that is respected by the school, and they need minimal oversight. Now, they still need boards with vision. They need accountability. Other teachers are more fragile. They're young teachers, possibly, more insecure. They need a lot of walking alongside, which is basically in-house support by administration, if your school has some kind of administration or head teacher at least inside. So there's that balance. But I've been challenged with this because, see, as an administrator, it's easy for me to shut down problems fairly easily, especially in the middle and lower grades. I mean, I'm not an 18-year-old anymore. And so I can go into a classroom and say, so I've been told that this room has a problem with whispering too much, and that's going to stop. I told the teacher that the next time she catches somebody whispering, you're going to come up to my office. A lot of you like coming up to my office, and they do. They bring me pictures and candy and snacks and all that. But this trip will be different. So, all right? Understand? How many of you are going to whisper today? Oh, nobody. But see, that's not my job. Why should I do that? Why shouldn't I back up the third grade teacher? That she does it. So she doesn't know what to do. Well, why don't you tell them that they need to stop doing that? Now, that sounds really strict, I know, but depends. I'm just using something that's a definable line here. Why don't you tell them that this really does need to stop? And if they do that, they got to stay in at recess. And if it gets bad enough, I'll get further involved. See, I think there's ways to empower the teacher, give them ideas, back them up. Many times I've gone to students knowing the problems and say, hey, are you doing a little better with this? Did my teacher tell you? Well, I know a little bit about it, but she said you're really trying to do better, so wow, keep it up. Oh, they just glow with that. It's a way to support them. I'm behind the teachers. I know what's going on without me stepping in and saying, that needs to change, that needs to stop. We need to empower the teachers because really it's their authority that you need to honor. And every time we step in, we're almost acting like the teacher couldn't quite do it. So it sends a signal to the teacher and it sends a signal to the students. Now, I think there's times to meet together, but I will almost never meet with just a student. I want the teacher to be along. It's gotten bad enough, say, well, do you want me to talk? Yes, would you please? I mean, sometimes teachers are about in tears. They're worn out. Well, then we have to step in. Say, why don't, especially tough cases, it's an extended case. Why don't you come up here? We'll talk. So, all right. Your teachers talked to you a few times about this, right? Yeah. And it doesn't seem like it's getting in. Then you can put some weight on it. But empower the teacher where you can. So that's the one side, but neither do we want to go so much that we don't, again, know what's going on. We don't want to micromanage on the other side. So a certain amount of autonomy, that takes a lot of wisdom, trust, etc. Last point, voice appreciation. You know, I know you think the teachers know you appreciate it, that what they're doing. And they do know that. But voice it. Doesn't that mean something to you when somebody voices something? Your spouse, your children? Somebody voices appreciation, especially in the context where there is a problem. Say, well, here's something I want to tell you. I appreciate so much about you. You really are doing well. Here's something that needs to be changed. So by voicing appreciation, it almost gives you an entrance into their life and almost a right to be able to speak into their lives when there are needs. God bless you as you endeavor to encourage and support your teachers.